Egor Vladimirovich Turley, a PhD in physics and mathematics, Russia, Moscow.
Егор Владимирович Турлей в 2003 году окончил
In 2003, he graduated from the Moscow State University named Dr. Lomonosov
обучение в аспирантуре,
with a
получал
red certificate.
Российской
He
Федерации.
received the internship, the scholarship by the president of the Russian Federation, and he had a lot of publications. In 2006, he got a PhD in biophysics.
Обучал студентов.
He taught students, he supported interdisciplinary international research projects from 2008 up to 2011. He helped the apparatus of the public chamber of Russia to keep the connections with the societal institutions, political activists, and from 2012 he's been working on the search of innovative solutions for the famous transnational cooperation in the area of electronics and telecommunications. From 2018, he is the scientific secretary of the National Berich Committee, one of the 24 founders of the organization. Also, apart from studying the Berich, which is the focus of his recent publications, he takes part in the work of theosophic structures, and recently he completed the work on Elena Petrovna Blavatskaya's life, about the mistakes and errors in the theosophic sources. Round of applause to Mr. Turley. The phonetics, the common phonetics aspects of Senzar in ancient languages.
Good afternoon, dear friends. For me, it is an honor and a great joy to be here. Well, let's start. In the history of occult sciences, there are two noteworthy topics that often go together, the topic of Atlantis and the language of initiates, Senzar. And if quite a lot has been written on the subject of Atlantis, starting from the ancient Greeks, there has been very little information about Senzar, at least until recently. In the introduction of the Secret Doctrine, HPB speaks of the core of her work, the Book of Xian. Tradition says that it was taken down in Senzar, the secret sacerdotal tongue, from the words of the divine beings who dedicated to the sons of light. Central Asia, the very beginning of the fifth of our race. There was a time when the language, Senzar, was known to the initiates of the very nation, when the forefathers of the Toltecs understood it as easily as inhabitants of the Lost Atlantis who inherited it in their turn from the sages of the third race, the Manushas, who learned it direct from the devas of the second and first races. Extracts from the book came down to us through using Chinese, Tibetan, and Sanskrit translations, and among the terms related to our derived from the corresponding languages, the author of the book in fact gives specific insight to the Senzar origin of a very small number of words. Amida is a Senzar form of Adi or Adi Bhuti. And basically, it corresponds to the to what is written in the Secret Doctrine, Volume 3, Section 30. Ahi, or Senzar, Ahi, or serpents, Tian Kogans, wise serpents, or dragons of wisdom, according to Blavatsky. Mu, in Senzar, the mystic word, or rather a portion of it. In Northern Buddhism, it means the destruction of temptation during the course of yoga practice. For the rest, Helena Petrovna left the Senzar dictionary to be discovered by future generations. At the same time, she gave a number of characteristics to the language, but not being a linguist, she did not always formulate these characteristics correctly. She also asserted the kinship of Senzar and a number of languages of ancient origins that differ greatly from one another, such as language of commentators of Avesta, and Sanskrit Egyptian with its hieroglyphic writing. Her descriptions mixed speech and writing. Professor Algeo, the president of several American philological societies and vice president of the Theosophical Society at Yar, wrote Back in 1988, thorough, as far as the topic allowed, work where he concluded, after some fairly convincing considerations, that Senzar is not a spoken language nor a system of writing that represents such a language. It is purely pictorial and symbolical. This conclusion was not surprising, considering that HPB herself wrote about Senzar this way. The system of the so-called Senzar characters is still more wonderful and difficult, since each letter is made to yield several meanings, a sign placed at the commencement showing the true meaning. The Senzar in Sanskrit alphabets and other occult languages, besides other potencies, have a number of color and distinct syllables for every letter. So had also the Mosaic Hebrew. But how many of the esoteric students know any of these languages? When the time comes, therefore, it must suffice to teach the students the numbers and colors attached to the Latin letters only. Yet, in the commentary to one of the slokas of Theosophism recorded at the Temple of People in California, one finds the following evidence for the existence of different levels of the secret language. Many ages before men had evolved an oral language, the first human races possessed some knowledge of what is now termed the mystery of universal language, which is based entirely on correspondence and analogy and expressed in symbolism. At the present time, the language in its entirety is only known to the masters. According to a teaching given by one of these masters, there are 5 main divisions of the language based upon sound, color, number, form, and position, and the language may be expressed in neither one or all the first 4 divisions mentioned. As an illustration, a simple geometrical form or a number may be telepathically flashed into the inner consciousness of a man by some being resident upon an interior plane of life, or by another man on this plane of gross or inert matter. Such a symbol would express much more than could be expressed in a long paragraph in writing or by many spoken words. Both parties were familiar with what mentioned of communication. A certain sound, color, number, form perceived by the psychic sense of vision of hearing have its correspondence to counterparts of the monastic astral or physical planes. Anyhow, in 2010, a complete English edition of the translections of Blavatsky Lodge meetings was published for the first time. After reading it, famous theosophical linguist Rage decided that finally we can be sure that Blavatsky used the phonetic form of Senzar and not pictographic. He decided to systemize the arguments in favor of the fact that there had been precisely a sacred form of some Proto-Indo-European language and the similar traces in the Pali Buddhist canon as well as in Jain, Adhamadathi, Prakrit canon. In the references, he cites, of course, the Vedic and Sanskrit. He also refers to George Rurik's student that we celebrate 120th anniversary this year, Tatiana Elizarenko, who translated the Rig Veda into the Russian language and showed the presence of Prakritisms that testify in favor of an unknown language of earlier and still unknown sacred text. This language may be Senzar. At the same time, those who study the legacy of the Ruriks, their wisdom and theosophical tradition, they are aware that in Agni Yoga, there are some Senzar words reported through Rurik by her spiritual mentor. She also used some Senzar words and letters to her correspondence. However, in our century, when the journal was published, we found some writings that were not known by the public. And in 2018, the rest of the records were made publicly available. Unfortunately, this led to a number of serious abuses and simply unqualified research of such complex material. On the positive side, however, we can consider access to the unprecedented variety of information recorded by the hand of Helena Ivanovna Rurik. Now it definitely requires a high-quality reflection and analysis before new and even more profane actions are undertaken by unscrupulous researchers. After the study, we can be almost certain that the author of the given report has compiled the largest among the publicly known list of Senzar words, and it includes a little more than 200 lexemes. Due to the limited possibilities of the linguistic analysis of all these words, as we can assume they relate to words from many ancient languages, since we are talking about a certain Proto-Indo-European language, the comparison was made phonetically. This is a logical first step, which will require further clarification by professional linguists. Below, I suggest to have a look at a table containing about 50 lexemes selected from 200, along with images made by a pen, variants of their spelling by the notes of the author. Well, let us start with alphabetic order according to the Russian alphabet. The first word is basically Latin, Avena. It might not be Senzar, but some words were not clarified by Senzar. They only could be guessed. Then you can see the relation to the other languages. The second word is Adita, like in Sanskrit, to be the beginning of something. It might be somewhat similar in the sense. The next one, Anapadaka, there is belief that it was Buddha's name, and the meaning of this name is the light of the spirit that exists in the form of the subtle body after its double is burned. In Sanskrit, there are similar words. The next, the following, the one who follows. If we're talking about the Buddha's daughter, it might make sense. Yet, if we try to decrypt the light of the spirit or the step above the earth after the burning of the double, it is not very clear, but it is very interesting. Then Upadana, which should not be mixed with Anupadaka. And we know that there was a kind of mistake that introduced itself into Theosophic texts and being reproduced. Then Asur-Dina, we know Assyrians in the ancient Veda period. Let's continue. The Asur of ancient Vedic period can be related to Avesta. They were ancient gods. Then it became, after certain transformation, they became demons after their battle with Suras. In the analogy we find in Greek history and Titanomachy. Bonameres, there is a meter in Latin. Parvatam, wilderness. There might be something close to a barbarian. Also, we can find this word in many languages with a similar meaning. Vergona, even in the Slavic languages, we have something similar. It might be enemy. Deo halal, the ether for respiration. We can imagine that Deo, like in Deodar or God, so it might be some kind of a divine breathing. Japa means on the calligraphy or the writing might be different, which means to recite the prayer. Maison might mean a means or tomb or something. Jara, in Sanskrit, there is the meaning for the old age. In peril, it was directly, we could see this Latin roots, irritation, venom, deposited in the nerve ducts. Yoga Paragana I found in ancient languages, Kannada, a Dravidian language. There might be some explanation, and Elena Petrovna wrote to her sister that she was translating the voice of the silence from Telugu. It is one of the Dravidian, South Dravidian languages. There might be the roots of this language for this word. So, Kalaija, in ancient Greek, color means red, and here in European languages, we can follow the word guide to guide somebody somewhere. Katalisa, falling into immobility. Caesar, holder, may be Esarkhan also has the same origins. Curatoria, the power of perseverance. Suffering with patience. Kriot, from a root crowd. Lamata, teacher of life, it might come from Tibetan, the highest. Langacharya, verbal teaching, long language, and charya means teacher or teaching. Litaism, Greek origins, strong, persistent. Maxini, the highest, it's quite clear. Manical, growth of consciousness that might relate to mothers. Mikera, here I thought that it might be close to Mikerin, the ancient pharaoh. It might be some kind of title. Messina might relate to mission. Nati primati, line, the formula for invoking psychic energy. We can the Italian language and the origins there. Ovalis, assimilation. Orisvati, Egyptian mystery, light bearing. It was mentioned that in Egypt they used the word Swati, and maybe they added Ori, going up, stand. Otatara. It was written that it used to be the name for the flower of Tara in Sanskrit. It might be mentioned in the ancient dictionaries. Olabad, a living house, bad, maybe from the Arabic language. Gloria, the state of complete unification of consciousness. Pelagia, inexhaustible by the elements, maybe it is related to the Greek pelagos, the sea. Petrodamos comes from Hebrew. Petra, stone, from Greek, forefather. Theonego, originator, pioneer. Puranaga, purgatory. Purus means clean. Senzar, a kind of book which might respond to Ganjur or Danjur, the books of Tibetan canon. Sadhiku, teacher of learning about life. Or sin fei, connecting the elements, sin and fei, like fire. Speramus comes from Latin, sperare, hope. Ultimo fratergat, the last one friendly to the brotherhood. Very interesting. Uttaraka, the one who found. There is Uttara Tantra in Ayurvedic canon. The one who does, the one who completes. Ferilocum, a place to hear interplanetary sound. Here we think about the planes of existence, about location. Ferilocus, a fairy might be the root for transition. And locus, location again. Menizunk means fortress. Kaneku, leadership. Chrysonomos, the cure for cancer. Comes from Greek, ereket, Latin, conception, istimacho, Latin, dignity. It was just a very, very brief overview, and we can follow to the conclusions. Well, we can note that not all of the words in the table were marked as belonging to the censor, but from the context, it is often implied so. The importance of the context is also important. We know that lokomutri is astral name, which nationality might it be? Elude, preach, sojourner, persuasive. Each word has several meanings. Each adverb has several approximations. For example, persuasive can mean soothing. It concludes with a reference to Senzar, but I thought Senzar was distinguished by its precision. Exactly, unusually precise, for persuasion is soothing. The bridge is reassuring. Without reassurance, you cannot reach the other shore. A separate factor is the accuracy of perception in recording the text. It varied in time and space. For example, in December 1926, it is promised to tell later what dinamura is. And the only thing that was eventually found in the text was similar word dinamuru in January 1929. On October 20, 1928, Helena Ivanovna Rerik writes that the barrier net is Dragina. The following she writes Dragina. In one place, the cure for cancer is called Chrysomonas, in another Chrysomunus. There is about a disc of aspiration of the yogi, and next to it there is a term aspiration over disc, discal. There can be several explanations for such facts and why it happened so. Of course, maybe it is due to the fact that it was handwriting. In any way, the analysis already made, even if it turns out that not every systematization has sufficient grounds, confirms Elena Ivanovna's thought. The sacred language of the Great Brotherhood is Senzar, and it consists of the most striking qualifiers taken from the dialects of all languages and peoples. It is especially evident, for example, adaptations from Latin. The sacred Senzar language consists of bad definitives adopted from existing languages. Many words with a Latin root are used in this language. Thus, imperil has a definite Latin root. There are some words which have not linked to any languages known to us. The single expression of complex idea or action. Wysons are similar to the Latin as well, but the Latin root is also from Asia. Given some difficulties in establishing the origin and semantics of a number of lexemes, it can be assumed that these problems may also be related to the fact that Sanskrit and Senzar lend a special flavor to the exposition and do not always find their equivalent in other languages. The results of the study are in fact the first step toward providing the kinship of ancient languages through the meditation of a more ancient language, Senzar, and together with the tabular data not mentioned in the report, can serve as a starting point for more in-depth study of the component of this language. Thank you very much, Egor Vladimirovich. Your
Thank you so much.
material,
The
classic research
and I think that our delegates and our audience who are interested in this topic will listen to you with great interest and look at these pages of the presentation with great interest. I'm very happy that your presentation will stay here. We'll have it, and it would be great if we had more time, probably on an individual level, we would be able to study those pages ourselves further Sanskrit, because while you were presenting the material, I always came up with phrases from the secret doctrine and some interpretations of various words. So there is some freedom, and I think it's an individual research of each of us. Helena would say Senzar is an ancient language, and this language is not present. She said it in one of the articles, and the study that is presented
такое
makes
ощущение,
this
что
absence
это
more
наш язык, на котором мы
clear.
говорили. Я думаю, что
It
каждый
makes
кто
it
сегодня
clearer to all of us
слушал
because
и
it's
смотрел
the language
основу
each of us
этого
speaks,
корней.
and you
Вот
are able to see the foundation, the roots of
образы
that, and probably you
русского языка,
had
его
the
системы.
images
Это
of
очень
the root
интересно.
system
Спасибо,
of
вы
the
сделали
words
такой
in the
анализ,
Russian
огромное
language. And it's
спасибо.
great
И что
that you've
именно
made
через
such an
языковые
analysis,
источники
and it's great
мы
that
можем
through
говорить
theosophic
о структуре и единстве
sources
языкового
we can talk
языка
about
как
the
системы. Поэтому
structural
большое спасибо
unity
за
of
открытие,
languages
за
and the
ответственные
system.
факты, каждый из
Thank you
которых
for
само по
providing us with
себе
the
это
facts,
исследование уже
because
может
each of
являться
them is
отдельным
a separate
исследованием каждого
study.
слайда. Огромное спасибо.
Each your page or your presentation is a separate study. Thank you so much.